Anne Marie, I appreciate you taking the time to do this today. Thanks for coming on the show.
Man, I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Yeah, so where I always like to start is, can you just talk me through a little bit of your athletic background? So, growing up, I know obviously your career was made in boxing, but how did that all
Yeah,
come to be for you?
man, I would have never guessed that. Like I tell everybody, first of all, I'm not a boxer. I'm not a boxer. I'm a fighter, and I've been a fighter my whole life. And that fight comes from really just internal, first and foremost, something I was blessed with internally, and a lot of how what I was around growing up. I had to have that fight mentality inside of myself. I was always an athlete, so I was always drawn to just being outdoors and grew up playing basketball, volleyball, softball my whole life. Um, and my senior year of high school, I actually I had this feeling that I was going to be in a life threatening situation. And that feeling grew stronger as my senior year went on. And after the summer, after my senior year, I was coming back from a tournament called the Empire State Games, upstate New York. I was on a volleyball team at the time, and came home. I was in a teammate's car, and the car hydroplaned. We 360'd off the road. We wrapped the pole on a northbound side of the highway. I got shot through the back window of the car. They found me halfway out the car, hanging unconscious. Stat flight was on the scene. They didn't fly me down because the weather was too severe. They put me on advanced life support. Went to a local hospital, stabilized me, put me on advanced life support, drove me down to Trauma One Center. Did somewhere between 14 and 18 hours of surgery. Was told I was never gonna play sports again. Might not walk or walk normal again. And I basically told the doctors they had no idea what was inside of me. And I broke my left tib, metal rod in my tibia. I had no feeling in my left leg from nerve damage. Right femur was broken, right hip bone was broken, leg was in traction, all the ribs on my right side were broken, right arm was shattered in 5 places, have a plate there, chin was torn apart, whole nine. I was in the hospital August 5th of Halloween, or excuse me, August 5th of 1995 to a week before Halloween, week before Halloween to a week before Thanksgiving. I was in rehab and came out and was right back into the gym. That's how boxing came into my place or into my life. Um, I was supposed to go compete for Seton Hall University that year. Obviously, I didn't. Went the following year. Was back in the gym training and started studying Jeet Kune Do. Just because a trainer I was friends with was a master instructor and was just doing it just to have fun, to learn. And somebody sent me something about New York Golden Gloves, a good friend of mine. And I was like, I want to compete. I was like, sure. Very, young, ignorant, naive, but that's me. I'm always going to go after something. It didn't matter. I just wanted to compete. So I went in and, long story short, fought the national champion at the time. I ended up fighting her for my very first fight. She was 23-0. I had like 2 weeks of hitting a bag. Didn't care. And actually, with 30 seconds left of that fight, had my nose broken. They stopped the fight and was approached by somebody from USA Boxing that was at the fight, gave me a ticket to Midland, Texas to compete in the US Nationals that Sunday with a broken nose, two black eyes, which doesn't happen, but higher power wanted me doing it. So it did. And fought that boxer again, the finals of the nationals, and then fought her again in the finals of the Golden Gloves 3 times in 3 weeks. And that was my lead into boxing. The next year I won the gloves, I won the national gloves, I went pro and became world champion and all of that. So in longer than what you might have expected, but I think that story is very prevalent for a lot of things that, want to discuss today, because it all goes back to, your mindset and understanding how things come into your life as blessings and lessons, and they're given not to you, but for you to really bring you to who you actually are as an individual, as an athlete, as a person,
Yeah,
what you're made of in terms of your perseverance and your faith.
yeah,
A
absolutely.
lot of documents in my life. If I say I didn't, I never thought I would be a boxer. Was never on my scope, on my radar. It found me, but there was reason behind it. And it allowed me to, I always knew I was going to be a professional athlete. That's what my feeling was when I was a child, because I knew there was something greater inside of me that I was meant to give out to this world, of just my outlook and, how I see things and what I believe in. It's that fight mentality, that warrior mentality. And I always knew that being a professional athlete was going to be a springboard, so to speak, to get my message out to the world on a bigger span. And that's also what tied me into, becoming a strength coach and performance coach and working with, not just elite level athletes, but also with the Gen Pop too, and just being able to touch and inspire lives. I mean, that's the greatest for me. That's the greatest gift that we can give, is to inspire somebody else, whether it's that athlete going for that world title, or just an individual that's coming back from injury themselves and just trying to function again.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Wow, there's so much to unpack just in that
Yeah.
first original story there.
Yeah, I didn't know you knew that. You didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'd done a little bit of research and I'd seen some of that stuff, but I mean, one thing right off the start, like I had read up that you had been in an accident at the end of
Yeah.
your senior year, but
Yeah.
just to hear that you had that feeling, like you had a feeling like you were
Yeah.
going to be in a life-threatening situation, like
Definitely did.
was can you unpack that a little more? Like, was it just sort of, it was just on your mind, like that's
Yeah,
got to be a
like,
scary feeling.
it was just, I mean, intuition, and I'm very intuitive in a lot of ways, and sometimes I need to listen to that intuition more. But I do definitely get these feelings, and I believe that as an individual, if you're really just open and free, that it's all about energy, right? Energy is real, and sometimes we have these things that come to us that we should do. We all have that, just whether we tap into it or not. And you know, I don't know. It's my senior year, like I said, it was just this feeling that was going through me. There was going to be something life threatening. I was going to face it, and I don't know where it came from, but it definitely became stronger throughout my senior year. I was very aware of it. I remember that day that we left for the tournament. It's basically, it's New York State is divided into sections, and every section had a main area where you can drive up to the venue, or you would take all the athletes go on a bus. So my mother had dropped me off to the arena where the buses were stationed to go up, and I remember I got onto the bus, and when I waved goodbye to my mom, and this feeling went through me: what if I never see her again? That's not normal,
No,
right?
of course
But
not.
again, I was very aware that it went through me, you know. And that the tournament happened, and originally I was supposed to be in my coach's car coming back, and there was a change in his schedule. I ended up being in this other vehicle, and funny thing is, God forbid, or God blessed me with this, that we couldn't fit a pillow in the trunk of the car with all of our gear and suitcases and whatnot. And the pillow actually had a big role in saving my life, because when I went through the window, the pillow is what took the impact, they say. And if I had any more head trauma, they said that I probably wouldn't have made it out.
Man.
So having that pillow, yeah, it's crazy, but I really believe, that God had prepared me for it mentally, and I think that's why I had that intuition. Um, and when I woke up, from the surgery, the first thing that I said to the doctors was, "What about sports?" And that's when they told me what they told me, and I said, "You have no idea what's inside of me." And it gave me that mindset of, "You got this. We're supposed to do this. This is part of your story. This is part of your mission." I put it out to the universe when I was young. That I knew what my mission was to inspire, empower, and impact as many lives as possible. And that mission has kind of grown and inspired as many lives as possible, from a place of and a point of strength, love, light from within myself, to bring another individual to their greatness within. That's my mission. No matter who I'm working with, and I put that out to the universe in some level when I was young. So it said, "Okay, this is what we're going to do, and these are the fights." And I said, "I'm a fighter. These are the fights you're going to go through to earn that and to become that warrior that you are within yourself." Right, warrior. We're constantly fighting the battles within ourselves and strengthening ourselves from within first and foremost. In order to really achieve that, you have to go through this. It's the fire you're going to walk through. And it gave me the mental fortitude to walk through those fires and to come out on top. I said, when
Yeah.
I was a fighter when I was young. I grew up. My parents got divorced when I was, I don't know, maybe fifth or sixth grade, and my father was very abusive to my mom. That was just a bad situation. He left us in complete poverty growing up. Like, we had a stove for heat. Like, he took all the money he had. That's a whole nother story. But that's kind of how I grew up. And again, it was coming from that, and realized, okay, I'm going to be the protector. I'm going to take care of. That was just what I took on internally, and it's just kind of grown, that self warrior virtues, all that had kind of grown and developed inside of me. And said, okay, how can I be the best that I can be to be there for my brother, for my mom, for myself, and to be that for other individuals who may need that light or that pillar of strength to lean on in life. And that's kind of gravitated me towards this world in terms of the fight world, and in terms of being a strength coach, and just, like I said, strength coach, not just to athletes, but to Gen Pop and anybody who's needing that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, that's giving me goosebumps already just hearing, where you've come from and what you've been able to do. Because the introduction, and like the introduction even that we're gonna add into for the episode, like the amount of certifications, the amount of different things you've been able to put behind you to be able to make that much bigger of an impact, like that alone is phenomenal. But
Okay.
I want to talk
It's
to
just
you.
growth, right? Though it's growth, so you're constantly learning. Like, what else can I
Of
have?
course.
It's not about necessarily having that certification, but what can I learn? What can I grab from it? What can somebody else teach me that I can tie in? Like, even when we're with the fighters, like, even animal flow work, and how much that's the same as what they're dealing with on the mats in the cage. Like, there's so much that can transfer over. If an athlete is injured, what can I give them that's to keep them, increase their mobility? Or if they're not, weight bearing right now, okay, we're going to put them on the ground and do some, body weight mechanics or whatnot. Like, it's just about constantly growing yourself, where
Yeah.
you're not constantly growing, you're dead. So for me, I want to get as much as I can to facilitate as much as I can to make somebody else better in their game, but also bettering myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I want to talk to you about, like, you wake up from that surgery and the doctors tell you, you're likely never going to walk normally again. You're never going to play sports again, all of these things. And you said immediately your mindset was,
You
I
have no
got
idea.
this.
Yep.
You have no idea what's inside me.
Yep.
Because
Yep.
obviously, like, that's enough to break most people on its own, like waking up in a hospital being told you're never going to walk normally
Sure.
again.
Sure.
So it was just a natural thing in you. Can you talk about like what that progression was like, from the day of waking up to like being able to not only walk normally again, but become a world champion athlete and then do everything you've done since? Like, what was that?
Man,
Talk to me about that story.
it waking up, like I said, I knew, like, I had it. There was not a doubt in my mind at all that I was done. I had no feeling in my left leg. I still was like, all right, no problem. I looked at my body. I had, stitches, staples, my legs in traction, so they had a screw through my leg and hanging it from this contraption to allow my hip to heal. And, just craziness. My arms in a sling. Like, this is my only limb that I had that was mobile. So I actually had bands on my bed. I would do anything I could on my left arm just to facilitate some type of movement. I was just against the grain the whole time, from when they first were like, okay, they were allowing me to sit up a little bit. And they only wanted me to sit up a little bit at a time because your body goes through the state from just being so bedridden, and you're just completely thrown off. So I would get nauseous, and then, they would want me to lie back down, and I just kept forcing it. They would basically electrocute, I don't remember the name of the procedure, my leg twice a day to try to facilitate the nerves to regenerate. This is the most painful thing I have ever gone through. And as I started getting more feeling throughout time, they would say, okay, they didn't want me on the right leg yet, but allowed me some weight bearing on my left. And they would leave, and I would come get off the bed and try to weight bear on it again, get in trouble. Just like, I just kept going against the grain. I remember going to the doctors just a week or so before they were going to let me go to the rehab place, and I wasn't supposed to be standing at all on both legs freely. And I remember they drove me to his remote office at the time for, I don't remember why he drove there, but whatever. And I got into the office. I was supposed to be in a wheelchair, and I just stood up on my own, and he like freaked out. And I was like, it was just constantly going against the grain. I know myself and what I am capable of, and nobody's going to tell me otherwise. It was that fortitude and that just mindset of just perseverance. And I got this. You don't know what I'm capable of. I do. My vision, and that's what, being able to instill that. It's not something you can really instill, right? You're born, but if you can bring that out, because a lot of just people and athletes are so distracted by a lot of the noise that gets put into our heads that starts creating the limiting, right? We have what's your BS, right? What's your belief system? Your bullshit, right? You have limiting beliefs and you have empowering beliefs. Well, a lot of times we're born with these empowering beliefs, but we have individuals that come in and put all this noise and negativity. You start allowing that 5% of doubt, which goes to that 10%, it starts taking over you. And a lot of times that's where, especially athletes, start to fall into these slumps because they start going into their head. You go into your head, you're dead. And it's fighting that battle. If we can stay clear and just stay in tune with who we really are and what our mission is, what our vision is, and what we truly believe, and not just believe, but know, we have to cross that line from belief to knowing it. Because that's the confidence. We can believe, but we have to believe that it allows that little bit of that circuit, and I know it, I own it, I am it, I own you. Okay. And that's the mindset that it takes to get, keep that fortitude, that perseverance to forge away towards what you want to achieve. And that's what it was for me in that hospital. It was frustrating, at times definitely frustrating. I had my moments, where, I might have gone off on, my mom or friend or family member that was there, because I'm not used to people waiting on me, and so you have
of course.
That was probably the hardest part. It was never because I knew what I was capable of. I remember I came home, the first day that I came home, first thing that I wanted to do was go run. And my mother was yelling at me. I was like, I'm out. I'm good. Because I needed to show I'm good. I needed to be back. I knew what my vision was, what my destiny was, what my mindset was just dead on doing and becoming. And I wasn't in a place to allow anything hold me back from that. So,
man, I can't tell you how hard that message hits, even just like me specifically, because I know, like, as a kid growing up, like, I was always that kid of, I always had an excuse for everything. Like, the reason I wasn't, playing a higher level in the sport, or, oh, this guy beat me, but he only beat me because of this. And then I remember it was actually moving out to Calgary, like where I ended up starting my business and everything, that shifted that mindset, because I moved into a job that paid $0, 0 cents an hour, and I had to work for free and build up my own clientele and my own business. And really quickly, when you start seeing your bank account dropping through the floor month after month, you realize if you want to be successful at something, it's all on you. And so, just seeing, like, obviously nothing that I dealt with in that respect was anywhere near, being on life support and everything that you've been through. So just to see that you were able to not just overcome all that stuff, but not even doubt yourself, like, be in that position where you knew you were overcoming every piece of that. Like, man, the inspiration that people can take away from that part of your story alone is unbelievable.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Listen, everybody's got their own story, right? Everybody's got their own path that's meant for them. And what I have to overcome and given to overcome is not necessarily, bigger or greater than you or anybody else. It's what we're meant to deal with. And there should never be, judgment or comparison in that nature, right? It's for me too. It was, I was always told no. When I was in high school, went to a very small high school. You're never going to go play Division I school. You're not from school that's big enough. Okay, watch me. And started getting a lot of schools in the Big East, and like I said, Seton University. And it's everything that I've done. I was told no. Even becoming with boxing, I was told by the first manager I had, "Oh, you're never going to become a world champion. You don't have." The right people at the time, or I don't remember what. I don't even remember half the stuff that he said. He wasn't the greatest guy.
But, I mean, that's not exactly what you'd want to hear from a manager, like.
Yeah, and not just become a one-time, become a 3-time, world champion, because no, I know the obstacles that are before me. I get it, and I'm gonna own them all. It's only gonna, the obstacle becomes your way, right? So
yeah.
The obstacle is the way.
Yeah.
And how I live my life. Okay, because it's meant for me. It's not happening. It's meant for me to overcome, to be that light. So bring it on, because I know what I hold in here is greater than anything that can come against me from out there. When my first world title fight, talking about intuition. So I had it. Listen, I've never been. I've worked as a strength coach 27 years. In about 23, 24 of those years, I worked 7 days a week. Okay, my only day off was Christmas. No vacation, 4 hours of sleep, even fighting for world title fights. I just grinding. Like, I know that. I know what that's about. And the one time I had an ex that took me away on vacation for Christmas. We went to London, and again, told you I never had vacation, right? Out there, I get a call. Oh, we have an opportunity for a title fight. Somebody fell out. I don't know, it was injury or illness. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I'm never really, you know? Oh man. But, jumped on it. All right, game on, and it was like 4 weeks away or 5 weeks away. And I remember I told you when I was younger, my message and my mission to be a greater level. I said, I want to have, how cool it'd be to have a documentary crew come and follow me, not for me, but because, just what female athletes, especially in boxing at the time, right? We're talking about 2000, go through to do what we do. And it was just, a thought. Well, I signed the contract, and I kid you not, the next day, 2 days later, PBS contacts me about doing a documentary, and they follow me up to Canada, to Edmonton, Canada, fight Jelena Marjanovic, my first world title fight. And it's just like, so you put these things out there, law of attraction is very real. Folks, I'm not gonna say, oh, I'm gonna win $1 million and it's gonna happen. But if you hold on to things, it's not just the one day or doing something once. It's the lead up, right? It's not just having a vision, but it's everything behind that vision. It's what you do consistently in your life that's gonna bring those things in. And I firmly believe, what you put out there is what you're gonna give back. So it's constantly putting out, focusing, and that happened. And when I was out there, they made it very clear. Listen, she's knocked out 11 of her previous opponents, and they made sure somebody was always in my ear wherever I was. They were making it very, very clear. They were trying to get into my headspace. And I remember the reporter at one of the press conferences asked me, how I felt about the situation and her being as big as she is, and I have so much respect for Jelena. And her past 11 knockouts, and blah blah blah. And I said, listen, she hasn't faced me yet, and that's kind of how you haven't faced me yet. That's great. You took them up, but they're not me, and they don't know what I have, and let's go. And it was, she has a very dangerous left hook, and incredibly dangerous left hook. And I knew to stay away from it. And I don't remember, maybe third round, fourth round, she caught me with it. And I was like, oh, and my legs definitely wobbled, but I had the awareness. I was like, all right, just keep moving. And something kept me on my feet. I kept moving, and it came back, and I won it. But I took your best shot. I'm right here still. Okay, now what?
Well, I mean, that's just like, again, like that in itself, right? It's like, I love that mentality of, someone's there trying to get in the headspace. Like the world title opportunity comes when you're taking your first vacation ever. And then, everybody's going on about, like, oh, she's done this. But again, you're just keeping that same mentality of, who you are, what you bring, and that no one's stopping you.
And that's the way you got to look at life. We have one shot at this, and we're born with gifts. They say that, it's very cliche to say the richest place is the graveyard, right? Because the majority of people go to their grave with their gifts.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. Recognize what it is and stand by it, and I'm going to fight for it, day in and day out, because I know that's why I'm here. And I don't need anybody else seeing the vision, understanding the vision, believing in the vision, whatever have you. I just need to.
And I think that in itself is extremely powerful, right? Because I think like that was something that I know I struggled with quite often early on was, I wanted to open up my own gym. I wanted to do these things that people were telling me, oh, you're crazy. Like I was told so many times, even, well, if you try to pursue a career in strength and conditioning, you're going to end up working the front desk at a commercial gym for your whole life. And I remember like it got to me in the beginning, like I took my first year of university in modern languages because I had decided that, strength and conditioning wasn't something people made a career at. I took 3 or 4 months of modern languages and I went, this is ridiculous. Like, I hate this. Why am I going to school for something I hate? Let's take a shot at strength and conditioning. This is what I wanted to do my whole life. Why would I not try? And then like I had so many people telling me it was nuts, telling me that, like, oh, you need to go for the safe job. You need to go for this. You need to do that. Oh, stop going after that. And, now I'm here. I'm running a gym. I'm working with athletes that are competing internationally, professionally. And I'm doing exactly what I grew up wanting to do. And it's just because I stopped listening to those people. So from your experience, if you're talking to somebody that, was maybe like I was early on, letting the noise kind of get to me and all of that, what would you say to them to say, like, I get that your parents don't believe it. I get that your friends don't believe it. Get rid of that and focus on what you actually want to go after.
Yeah, you guys shut down the noise, stay out of your head, shut down the noise. Focus on always your head and your heart, they always have a battle, right? Forget the head and the heart for a second and go right into what you're feeling in your soul. So that's where meditation, like every morning I go, we prime ourselves as athletes, or even just going into a training session for ourselves, to prepare our bodies for what we're going to do, or for a competition, right? We always have this warm up, this priming series that we'll do. So why are we not priming ourselves for every day? Getting our mindset right for what we want to accomplish, and recognizing who we are as individuals, what we're about, what we're grateful for. These are things I do in the morning. Get myself right, meditate, I pray, I put myself in that right mental space so that I am very clear on my goals, on my tasks, on what I want to accomplish every day, why I'm here. And that's something that has definitely helped me, to accomplish everything that I've done and continue to. And there was a time where I did step away recently from doing that. I was going through some personal stuff, and it when I stepped away from that, I noticed how drastically it really affected my day, and took me off my purpose, and took me off of my mission and who I am. It's very important that we stay in tune with ourselves and the nature of ourselves and what we're about. And if we can start our day by holding true to that and grasping onto it, nothing's going to take you off that course unless you sit there and you allow it to. But you're never going to don't allow anybody else. You're not going to allow your opponent to overpower you in competition. Don't allow these are your opponents in life to overpower you in life and take you off of what you're destined for, right? We're not guaranteed the next day. We're not guaranteed the next breath. So it's about embracing that and owning that breath and those moments for everything that they are, and understanding that those moments are what's going to put you on the path to your success. It's just staying on that pathway of being determined and staying hungry and confident.
Yeah.
It's that confidence when you're yourself and within your dream, and you have that vision maybe nobody else can see because you are blessed with that vision. It's not for anybody else to see. And if we live our life listening to everybody else, then those they say those final days, you're living with regret. I'd rather go after everything. Listen, I've fallen many times. I haven't failed because I keep coming back. I've lost everything financially. I've lost many times. Had many great falls, but it's what I hold to myself to say, okay, these are my lessons. This is what can I learn from that? Where is this blessing me to be now? Where is this bringing me now? And if I had taken those risks, I would have regretted it. I took the risk and it happened. And okay, where is that going to take me to now? How much more wisdom do I have now to, one, not make that mistake again, or two, to see where that is going to now transport me for further growth. It's the same thing like being in competition. When I won my first world title fight, I said, I want to fight the best. I want to fight, I want to see where I can push myself. So I don't even really remember my record. I don't have the, most phenomenal record, but it's because I took the risks to go against all these other top-notch opponents. I wanted to test myself. And with that, learn and grow and see where can I actually take this, and that's the way you got to look at life. And if you live life with this fear of, oh, this one's saying this one's saying that, it's been said many times that fear is the most silent and deadly killer that's out there. It'll rob you of your dreams. It'll rob you of your finances. It'll rob you of relationship. It'll rob you of your health. It'll rob you of everything, right? It's the most silent and deadly disease outside of cancer. We can't choose cancer. We can choose fear.
Yeah.
So in the life of faith over fear, right? When all else fails, faith is what endures, right? Faith is what we can always rely back on. And that's what ties us all together, is that we can always have that faith to grow stronger. And that's what you need to hold on to when that doubt and that noise starts creeping in. No, I am this. I am strong. I am perseverant. I am a warrior. I am virtuous. Who are you? Maintain who you are, and knowing that you never losing sight of that. And if we every day, I go through those statements. of who I am to keep me on track. And that really sets up my day. And that's what I would tell somebody, just coming up. Not even just coming up, even now. I mean, everybody needs to hear those things. Everybody needs that reassurance. Everybody needs a coach.
Yeah.
And I tell people all the time, it's not about us being in it. Even my boxing career, I mean, there's so many times in boxing where I, just be exhausted, from grinding with clients all morning, all night, and strength training in between, boxing in between, and working 7 days a week. And, I'd be doing road work or I'd be going to spar and I'd be like almost in tears because I'd be so exhausted. And there were times where there were, you start feeling, maybe there's so much negativity I was dealing with, and, just different circumstances that would come up. And it's like, all right, is it worth it? And I would get those moments where I start contemplating and thinking, because I'm human, right? I have the perseverance, but I also have human moments, right? I'd get a letter at a gym. I'd go into Gleason's, there'd be a piece of fan mail, or I'd get an email from somebody saying how I've inspired them, or they know my story. And I'm like, you know what? And this is also, I try to, live my life. It's not just about me. It's not my journey. It's bigger than me. It's impacting others. And that's not just being a professional athlete. That's every day. We had the opportunity and the privilege, as you was, to lift somebody else up and inspire somebody else. Just give a smile to somebody else. And that's one thing that we got to keep in mind too, and that will help you on track. And your journey is not just for you, and you following through is not just for you. It's for somebody else that might be looking up to you. You don't even know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was starting to question whether or not you did have those human moments just from everything else we've been talking about here. But it is like, obviously we all do have it from time to time. But what I love hearing there was just how you said, you'd get like a piece of fan mail or like somebody at the gym or whatever it might be, because I think regardless of what stage you're on, like whether you are, on the world stage competing at the top level, or whether you're just like, you're at those lower levels, but you're grinding and it's that kid at your gym that's looking up to you, or, someone else that's seeing the work you're putting in, seeing what you're doing and going, man, like that, you could have just changed the track of this other kid's life by continuing to do what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love hearing that.
Sure. And it's being real, it's being real, and it's being vulnerable. I go through stuff, I'm human, it's human condition. We fall, but again, it goes back to you're failing. Pick yourself up. It's not how you fall, it's how you're going to get back up. Okay, you're going to rise above it. I would say, like Phoenix, I'm constantly being reborn and rebuilt, and just understanding it and accepting it. Say, okay, what next? Now what?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's holding on to, okay, not letting go of what your actual mission is, what your purpose is, what your why is, right? Your why is be greater than everything else, and continuously persevering towards that.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a great lesson. I love hearing that. But for someone now, like if you're talking to somebody who's in that depths of despair, like they feel like, okay, I just lost it all. I'm in that bottom of the bottom of the bottom. There's no way I'm coming back from this. What would your advice be as far as like finding the first step, figuring out, how to take that positive from it, how to learn from the situation they're in?
I'd say first they have to recognize that the worst enemy that they have is not outside, it's within them. It's going into their head and their thoughts and getting caught there. So that they have to understand first. Do not allow yourself to go into your thoughts, because you go into that thought space where you get stuck, you go down this rabbit hole. Understanding that you're in a place where now everything is it feels like it might be lost or is uncertain. That's when everything is absolutely possible and certain to be built from. You're in a place where you can just Simba, sorry, he's down.
No problem. The dog's coming to say hello.
Where you can totally build anew and you have a fresh start to come back greater. You don't want to go back, right? I don't want to be who I was yesterday. I don't want to be the coach I was yesterday, last week, last year. I don't want to be the person I was. I want to grow bigger, better, and stronger from that. So if I'm at a place of rock bottom, okay, how can I have the greatest comeback of my life at this moment in time? What do I need to do next? And just understanding it's one day at a time, it's one breath at a time, and focusing on just that 1 minute, that 1 second of every day, and making sure that it's in a positive direction, falling forward, right? Not falling backwards, constantly falling forwards and moving forward and grasping on breath by breath, inch by inch, until you're at a point where you're like, okay, I got this. And you start feeling, you start remembering who you are, remembering what you're about, recognizing, okay, I can overcome this. It's nothing for me. And just understanding again, it's for you. Everything's for you.
Yeah.
It's a lesson, man. Sometimes there's things that, the universe is gonna bring into us because we need to learn it. We need to see it. We need to understand it better. And things gonna get, pulled away or changed or shifted to help us to see with more clarity, even though we might not understand in that moment. But it's trusting in that and trusting that, we will accomplish what it is that we're meant to. It just might not be in the way that we have foreseen it to be.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that I love the power of that too. Like the phrase "one day at a time" is actually up on the wall at my gym, because that's something I always try to enforce with my own athletes, that if you feel like you're dropping lower than you want to be, or if you get cut from the team you were trying to make this season, or whatever you're actually dealing with, focus on today. If you focus on today, 10 years from now, you're going to be further ahead than you ever thought you could be. If you focus on 10 years from now, everything between now and then becomes really overwhelming. But so I love hearing the way you put it there, of just 1 inch, 1 day, 1 breath.
It's all those little things. It's those little things that monumentally, you put in 1 extra percent every day, 365 days out of a year, 365% further at the end of the year. It's not rushing it, but embracing it. Put as much as you can into the foundational elements, because that's what it all comes back to, right? And if our foundation is strong, we might get knocked down again, maybe a couple months down the road or whatever have you. We're not going to fall back as hard or as far. We have a stronger structure, and it's going to just keep building and keep building and keep building, right? Nobody sees true success without having failures in their life and learning from them. And okay, what do I need to do better?
Yeah.
What do I need to capitalize on? What did I need to learn? How can I come back and really own what I know I'm capable of and meant for and desiring in life?
Yeah.
It's what keeps. It's really what finds the same thing with boxing, or any combat sport. You're in that ring, that cage on the mat with another individual. That's not necessarily who you're facing. You're facing yourself and what you're willing to give, in order to attain that victory. You're seeing 3 of your opponent in front of you. You're feeling fatigue. You just got hit hard. You're having trouble breathing. You're going through a lot of stresses inside. How bad do you want to overcome what you're feeling, what you're going through? You want that victory. It pushes you mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. That's why I fell in love with being in boxing, because it very much mimics everything that goes on in life. And at the end, how much are you willing to give and persevere to obtain that victory? And what are you made of within yourself? You got hit, you're feeling a certain way. Are you going to let that fatigue take you down? Are you going to let the strategy this opponent's using against you take you down? Or are you going to find a way to overcome it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the reasons I've actually really loved working with combat athletes. Like the last few years, that's been a huge emerging market for me in my strength and conditioning business. And it's seeing the day-to-day of these athletes that is it's phenomenal to me. Like it's amazing to see, what goes into every day, what goes into the product that ends up stepping in the ring or stepping in the cage.
Yeah, for sure. There's so much, mentally that, especially these guys, more are dealing with on a regular basis. And, you also got to look at for a lot of these guys, they come in and they're leaving their families, they're coming into training camp, they're away from their support systems, and they're dealing with the stresses and they're dealing with the pressures and what everybody, demands of them. And there's a lot of things that, general population doesn't understand what really goes into these athletes and how important their structural mindset truly is. In fact, that they have that recovery outside of their training, and not just going back to the external, but the internal recovery, and where their mindset and being able to balance that is going to take them. And again, how much that really could portray into just everyday life as well. Of so many different stresses and how are we able to handle them and compartmentalize them and find that balance and, make savage the body, keep the mind calm. But you know what? It's keep the mind calm, but when we want a certain goal to be achieved, or we're dealing with all these elements, it's also keeping that mind savage, but understanding how to keep that balance between the two. And that
Yeah.
clarity and the silence to be able to, be within ourselves and emotional, having that emotional intelligence, having that emotional control, but having that savagery to say, okay, this is coming against me. I'm going through it. I'm going over it. I'm going around it. I don't care, but I'm going after my goal. And everything comes back to that, just the balance of everything.
Yeah, I love that. I love that idea of like finding the balance between keeping the mind savage and keeping the mind calm. Because I know you work now in Florida with some of the top combat athletes in the world with the Daru Strong Performance Center. Can you talk a little bit? Like, one of the main reasons I started this show is to dig into behind the scenes, dig into the things that create success in top level athletes. I think, Phil Daru and like on his own, but the athletes that come through that facility are a primary example of some of the best athletes and some of the best coaches in the world. Can you talk through just like in your day to day out at that facility, like with the people you're around, is there a particular trait or anything you notice with these elite human beings that you're around, including yourself, that you believe allows them to succeed at top levels compared to those who don't?
I mean, across the board, whether it's any athlete that is elite level, it comes down to having that warrior mentality. That is truly what defines a champion athlete from someone just from the competitors. That's what's going to define your top 10 in the UFC, as opposed to guys that are just coming in and never making it to those title fights. Because if you don't have the ability to if you don't have the ability to really persevere every day and go through all the emotional and mental stresses that are applied, as well as the physical and what's demanded of you, you start to have a breakdown within yourself, and it affects you. It affects your mental state. So you don't have the ability, the capacity to push yourself to those levels in training, to perform at elite levels. You don't have the discipline outside to know how to rest your body, how to recover, to get in the proper supplementation, proper nutrition, proper forms of recovery, even in terms of going to sauna, getting massage, whatever your body needs, taking downtime, and you're going out and whether it be partying or just doing other activities that are taken away from your recovery time, you're not going to be in that top caliber. Even finding time to meditate and go into who you are in terms of just yourself and shutting off all this and just finding that mental clarity. These are all the things that will start breaking down a champion on any level, whether it's UFC, tennis, space, whatever the case may be. If an athlete doesn't have that discipline to maintain what is necessary to them, not just in training, whether it be 2 hours of training, or some of these guys go through 6, 8 hours of training, whatever it is, you're not taking yourself outside of that. You're not doing what is necessary. It's gonna break you down. It's gonna break you down if you're not taking care of yourself physically, emotionally, mentally, taking care of what you need, talking out what you're feeling or what you're going through, your stresses, and having and it's also on the coaches too, because as a coach, you need to be able to recognize if an athlete, you're getting a certain energy off them that's not their norm. You need to know. Every one of these guys has their own is in their own kind of element. They have their own personality. And you get to know how they're feeling or when they're off. And now the coaches, you want to be able to recognize that and be able to have those conversations with them, and be able to guide them if they are feeling a little off or they're feeling a little fatigued. And looking at even their physiology, how are they carrying themselves, how are they looking, and they're not performing the way they normally do. Something's off. You feeling a little shot. You know what I'm saying? and the language, like in in terms of athletics, especially in terms of athletes, especially there's three elements that this is just goal setting in general, but especially athletes, your focus, your physiology, and your language are so critical. Like what your focus is on, right? Cliche, where focus goes, energy flows, right? Well, what they're focused on in that moment is so vital to their performance. Or are they focused in that moment on something that happened earlier that day? Are they focused on, the fight or what somebody said to them? Where's their focus? That has to be 100% in that moment of every aspect of what they're doing. Their focus can't be elsewhere, as everything will fall apart. Whereas their physiology of how they're, like I said, even how they're walking into the gym, how they're walking around, how they're communicating, right? They down or they're up, they're in good mood, and being aware of that, being able to recognize that, language that they're using. This is really key because it doesn't matter what anybody else, right, says about you or to you. It's what you say to yourself, your language. And that language, if you're not having those positive conversations with yourself on a daily basis, words are powerful. That's one of the most powerful things, around. It's much more powerful than getting a shot. You take a punch to the face or a knee to the face, okay, you're going to recover. But those words, man, what you're saying to them is more important than anything else. So it's, the language that any athlete is using within themselves is massively important to the outcome that they're going to have. Even go back to, I
Yeah.
said, she hasn't faced me yet. Like language is everything. So, it's the athlete, but it's also the coaches too, and being able to recognize these things about the athletes. And it's a team, right? Nobody's self-made, so to speak. There's got to be the right team around, just like, say 5 people that you surround yourself with, right? Or coaches that you surround yourself with, teammates that you surround yourself with. Everything goes together as a whole.
Yeah. And I mean, I love that in itself, just because I think, one thing I keep getting from this whole interview is it's just coming back to that internal, right? Like coming back to knowing who you are and knowing what you're here for. And if you're talking to anybody right now, because I know, from so many kids out there and like even people into their 20s, 30s and beyond, knowing who you are is a really difficult thing. Like really being able to look internally and figure out, what makes you tick, what you're put on the work, like put on the earth for. What would be your thoughts as far as how to have that honest conversation with yourself, how to truly, look internally that way and, kind of take the first steps towards figuring out, you're not just a boxer or you're not just a hockey player. Like, who is it that makes up you as a human being? What is it that makes up you as a human being?
I mean, that's a tough question. I mean, it's something you feel. Again, it's what do you where what makes you, what gives you fulfillment? Where's your passion? What are you drawn to? What keeps you going? If as an athlete, especially any of these guys, coming in and fighting, they feel like they're bored with their training, or they're feeling, if you get a negative response, that maybe they're wanting to move on to something else. And you got to know, especially in the fight game, you got to know when you're starting to lose that fire, because fighting, right? You don't play combat sports, right? But knowing, I guess, where your true mission is, it's something you just are innately, you're born with. And not all of us, I was very blessed to understand that from a young age and be able to hone in on that. But for others, it might not be that easy, and it might be something that just takes you really just sitting with yourself and feeling what you're drawn to, and shutting off what maybe anybody else has said is what you're supposed to do, or how you're supposed to do it, or what you're supposed to be. Like you said, with being a strength coach, what is it that really pulls to the very depth of your heart and of your soul, and being able to find the ability to, and the strength to be able to follow through on that.
Yeah,
And
I mean, I love that because that was something I know for myself. Like, I remember at one point in that first job when I moved to Calgary, when I was making zero money at all, and it was completely up to me to survive, essentially. Like, if I was gonna not be homeless, it was up to me to build up the clientele, me to me to actually create the income. No one was going to hand it to me. And I remember talking to so many people that they were pointing out other jobs. It was like, oh, well, you could go work here and make X amount of thousands of dollars per year. Or, oh, you could go do that. And I remember, like, I couldn't even fake being tempted by it. Like, I couldn't even fake being like, oh yeah, I'd love to go be a teacher and make $40,000 a year instead of scraping by on barely enough to pay rent. I was like, there was no thought of it. It was just like, no, like, this is where I'm supposed to be. This is what I'm supposed to do. And this is what I'm going to make happen. And, you know, it took me a while to figure it out, but it was like, I love that mentality of, you know, it's something that you're going to feel, something that you're going to be drawn to.
Yeah, it has to be, you know, that's for anything. Like, you have to be, if you're not feeling it, then why would you do it? You know, if you're not feeling it, you're not feeling drawn to it, then what? It's basically it. Just why would you do it? What's the purpose behind it? What's the point behind it? And then how much you willing to give to it if you have no desire to do it, if you have no underlying passion to do it, how much you got to really succeed because you have nothing that's pushing you through elements and obstacles that you're going to face, right? We all face obstacles no matter what we're going to do. But if I don't have the desire to really pull through, well, how far is that going to get me? And then am I really living life, or am I just surviving through day to day? You know, where do you want to be? You know, I'd rather be doing what I love, and even if it was a battle every single day, because it's what I love. You know, I say I work 7 days a week, right? I didn't work. I love what I do.
Yeah.
Tired, yeah, 100%. Exhausted, absolutely. But, you know, like people say, you know, never worked a day in my life. I've never worked a day in my life. I love what I do. And I'm blessed to do what I do. And I'm grateful as all can be to do what I do and to, you know, be living my dream, the life that I want to live, being able to have impact on individuals as I hope to, you know. And that's what, you know, everybody should have. I want everybody to have that feeling. That's what life is about. That's the essence of this, you know, doing what we're passionate about, you know, and being able to, you know, work with especially with athletes, and being able to take to that, you know, or even remind them, like, man, we're blessed. Like, it's a blessed life.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's easy to lose that feeling sometimes, right? When you are, you know, in the depths of those grinding days, like, to be able to kind of lose that feeling and feel like, oh man, like, this is tough. But to just have someone like yourself there to remind somebody, this is a blessed life. Like, you get to wake up every day and strive for something that you truly want to pursue. You know, that's a blessing in itself. Like, there are going to be difficult days within that, but I think if you're looking to achieve anything on a high level, you know, whether it's as a coach, as an athlete, or in any other field or any other industry, you're going to have to go through struggle to achieve those great things.
Struggles are what make it worth it. You know, if you were given everything in your life just freely, you wouldn't have the appreciation. You know, there wouldn't be the value for it if we were just handed everything in life. When we have to work for something and earn it, that we can then, like, wow, you know, appreciate what you've done, appreciate the journey, appreciate the struggles. As those struggles, the only thing that's made you stronger. You know, it's what's brought you to that next level. Not just athleticism, but just of life. You know, and being able to let's say vibrate at a higher level, be at a higher level, and be able to give back to others at a higher level because you've been there, you've gone through it, and now you can, you know, be that, give that back to somebody else that's going through that same or similar struggle in their own life journey, you know, training, whatever have you. You know, the same thing I say all the time: training and life imitate each other, right? We go into the weight room, and, you know, we're hit. We have to learn how to strain. We're going to get stronger. We got to learn how to strain underneath the bar. How are you going to strain? How are you going to push through? You got to learn that in life. We're getting hit with heavier loads and stuff. We got to learn how to strain. Okay, I'm going to grind through. You know, we got to learn how to. And that's how we're going to get stronger. The same way we affect our muscles and building up that capacity and that volume, right? We need to create that volume. We got to build up that volume. We got to build up that volume. How to deal with things in life. Okay, I've been through this. I've been through it. Okay, now what's next? You know, and it's all very similar, just how you look at things, your perception.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like, the biggest takeaways here for me, and I hope that everyone else is taking something similar, is the biggest thing is follow what you're actually drawn towards. Because I think that's, you know, that was a huge struggle for me early on, and I know it's a struggle for so many people. Like, I talk to athletes every day that, you know, they're talking about, oh, well, this is probably my last year competing because, you know, then it's time to go off and get a real job. And why would you not compete until you don't have the fire for it anymore? Like, you know, that real job, quote unquote, is always going to be there if you ever hit that point where that's what you need to go do. But I think, again, if the passion is there and the passion is driving you, keep going for it. And I think the biggest thing as well is look internally. You're going to have so many people in your life that think they know what's best for you, that think they know, what should be your next step, or, oh, you should stop working on this and try for this instead. You're the only one who knows for sure. Take pieces from the people around you, learn from the people around you, talk to the people around you, but you're the one who's going to know over anybody else.
Absolutely. And that's so important you said too, because people say, oh, what's influenced you, who's impacted you? I'm just like, man, everybody that I've been around, it's from the just good people in my life. I pick up on this from this one and this from this one, and it's molding it into your own, and it's not just one way of thinking or one way of doing things. It's what you may gravitate towards from this person, from this person, but defining everything within how you feel it needs to be done and how you believe it needs to be done for yourself, for your dreams, for your goals. And again, it's just having that faith within yourself and what you're meant to, and knowing that at the end of the day, you're the only one that has that gift, that blessing, those values that are instilled within you to achieve what you're meant to achieve, and not allowing any disruption of that to set you back, but only allow you to grow stronger and to adapt and overcome the way that you're meant to.
Yeah. And, just before we wrap up, I think like that lesson in itself is such a powerful one. And I really hope anybody listening is really taking to that one, because again, you are the person in control. You're the person who's going to guide it. You can take from those people around you, but ultimately it comes down to you, what you're willing to do. But keeping the goal of the show in mind, just before we wrap up, what it truly takes to build success in athletic careers or otherwise. Do you feel like there's anything that we missed, anything that you'd want to touch on a little bit more?
No, man. I think we said, in terms. You want to say stuff? I know.
I was gonna say, if Simba wants to interject here too.
No, I think pretty much, I think everything was pretty much, stated and covered in terms of, if we're looking outside of the box of just, training, where I was thinking about going, because I just think it's very important, that mental, that internal response, internal training, mental condition that I don't think there's enough of that gets done or looked at. It's underappreciated of how much that is going to facilitate, an athlete's performance, in training, in the gym, in competition. And if we take the value away from that, we're doing a massive disservice to that athlete.
Yeah. And I mean, I love it because that's exactly what I'm hoping to do with this show, right? Like when people originally heard that I was starting a podcast and being a strength and conditioning coach, they expected it to be, all about the training methods and all about, the front squat versus the back squat, or, this versus that. But I really wanted to stick away from that stuff because I think there's so much of that out there already, which is good. We need to talk about, the different methods, how to properly train athletes. But I think this, exactly what we've dug into over the past hour or so, that's the stuff that's really going to make the difference. If you're training hard, does it truly matter if you're doing a front squat versus a back squat? Probably not. Does it matter if you're able to pick yourself up when you get knocked down? Does it matter if you're able to learn from difficult situations and come back stronger? Right. Absolutely. That is the stuff that's going to create champions. So I really appreciate everything you brought to the show this past hour, but everything you bring to, your day to day. That was truly inspirational to me, and I hope to so many others as well.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And for everybody else listening, this has been the Elite Development Podcast with Anne-Marie Saccurato and Kenny Dusseault.